Hi, folks. Today we're talking with actor and producer Jamie Bamber. He is the star of the new independent feature film, John Doe Vigilante, which comes out on DVD next Tuesday, April 14th, courtesy of Arc Entertainment. How are you doing today?
I'm well, very well. Yeah, enjoying a blustery sunny day in California.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it's been raining a lot down here in Texas. It's pretty cold the last couple of days, but it seems to be warming up a little bit.
Good to hear it.
Well, thanks for taking the time to talk to us today. The new movie you're in, John Doe Vigilante, it's a story I felt as old as time. It deals with humankind's most basic emotion, revenge. But your character, the aforementioned John Doe, makes a very good argument for vengeance, whereas many other films would argue against that. And how wrong it is, morally and ethically. I mean, as an actor, how were you able to connect with the character of John Doe?
Well, my approach as an actor was to find out where he comes from, why he is the way he is, why he's trodden down this very extreme path, and the reality and the way the film presents the reality is through many layers of illusion and mask. I feel when I watch this film that the audience is taken on a journey largely by the media, by the broadcast media and by internet media, and a narrative and a construct is created by the media that serves many different purposes, but one of which is to entertain, to titillate, to kind of make sense of something that doesn't make much sense. And the result of that is this phenomenon, is this idea of justice, restorative justice served out by an individual, and is it real? And I think if the film works, and for me it does, is it takes nice ordinary people in the audience, and for a minute it makes you tap into this mob speak, sense of trying to restore some kind of fairness to the world. And then at the very last minute, when you feel like you're going along with this journey, it flips the mirror around and makes you look at yourself in the face, and you understand exactly the conclusion and the reality of what you look like in that moment. And it's not, I don't think, I would argue, a nice, comfortable feeling when you're in the audience. And the only time I've watched it in a crowded theatre, there was uncomfortable laughter at certain moments, which I thought was really interesting, because it really is a moment where people are forced to examine their own kind of vengeance and their lust for vengeance. So I hope it's a complicated film. I hope it's a complex film that really challenges people, and not one that kind of is a call to arms. But that's for the viewers to decide.
Yeah, there was that scene where you're with one of the guys there, and you're the audience doesn't know if you're going to kill him or what you're going to do, and it ends up being broadcast on to TV.
Yeah.
And everybody's watching, and it's kind of a morbid curiosity where you want to look away, but at the same time you want to continue watching.
Exactly, and I think that's a key scene in the film. And you do have an angry exchange between people caught in this video store watching this live event. There's the conscience of the room that says we shouldn't watch this.
Exactly.
Someone else says, someone tells them to go and F off. If they're not interested, they can go somewhere else. And you can almost see, there's a look in that person's face where, actually, I really want to stay, but now that they've said it, they've got to go. So, we are living through those times where we're wondering what constitutes, entertainment, what constitutes news, what constitutes informing people, and what is just titillation and shock. And, the tragedy is that it can be all of those things at the same time. And I think this film, in that moment, sort of tries to encapture that. This is a tragedy about a broken, fallen man who's lost, and yet through the media, through his own sort of attempts to make sense of what he's doing, it's turned into a movement. It's turned into something that actually seems to have a purpose.
Yeah.
When right deep down, vengeance is a very negative thing. It has no purpose other than a negative one. So, that's exactly what I hope the film raises, and I hope people who do watch it feel that it serves that purpose. It's about the media, it's about storytellers, it's about fiction, and it's about entertainment, and as well as justice, as well as injustice.
Well, in the course of the film, we find out that John's wife and daughter were brutally murdered, and that one event transforms him from a loving family man pretty much into the angel of death. He's exacting revenge on those who deserve it, rapists, murderers, pedophiles. But the twist is these people were already tried in a court of law, and for whatever reason, they're acquitted, and upon the release, they go back to doing their bad deeds. And so, in essence, the film puts the audience on John Doe's side, and that's not an easy feat considering the film's subject matter. Was that aspect something you and the filmmakers talked about during the film?
It was a question we asked each other on a daily basis. Are you for him or are you against him? And I think, for me, the interesting thing is, even when you paint it in those clear-cut terms, you know, and the news journalist featured in the film does that.
Yeah.
You paint the clearest, most easily consumable image of John Doe possible. Even when you do that, and the audience is invited to go along with that process, once you see the reality of looking at the world in those black and white terms, then every decision you make becomes black and white, and then the world becomes a much nastier, scarier place, I would argue.
Yeah.
And I, you know, that is what the film is about. It's about those arguments that are given to audiences, consumers of entertainment, of news, in very clear, manageable, digestible terms. And yet, at the heart of all this is a guy that we actually do get to meet in the film towards the end. You know, you don't really get to see the real John, but towards the end.
Right.
And I'm hoping, certainly what I was interested in exploring as an actor is to explore how messy and unclear that person is, and how confused he's become by his own process, by his own twisted logic. And yet, you know, for many people, he is a hero. I think we do that to people all the time. We turn them into things that they're not.
Exactly.
With the media. And it's been going on for time immemorial. You know, we lionize people, we vilify people. The reality is always somewhere in the middle and a bit more difficult to digest.
Exactly. I agree with that. Now, the movie itself could be looked upon pretty much, I think, a remake of the Death Wish movies from the 70s, which starred Charles Bronson, because in those movies he goes after the men who killed his wife and daughter, which is similar to the John Doe Vigilante story. I mean, did you guys ever consider just calling the movie, you know, Death Wish, or, you know, did that ever come up at all?
No, it didn't. I mean, listen, I didn't write this film. I don't know what Kel and Steve's, the writers' influences were, but obviously the Death Wish is there as a parallel. I'd like to think we're doing something different in the way that we are then problematizing this response and also examining the role of the media and the public in the modern world, the way we consume events and the way they can snowball and go, in inverted commas, viral so quickly. You know, that obviously Death Wish was made in a world that wasn't as readily possible, and it was much more of a clandestine kind of phenomenon. So I'd like to think we're doing something different. I'd like to think we're really asking questions of the audience and not just affirming some primeval, slaking some primeval bloodlust.
Right.
But I may be wrong. If we're doing that, then you know, I would say that I have failed, and that maybe we failed as filmmakers, because the point of this film is to really put an audience where it wouldn't expect to be, to feel things they wouldn't expect to feel, and then to kind of examine themselves and how they feel about themselves for having gone there. I think the Death Wish movies were really, you know, quite gratificatory, you know, towards some sort of lust for revenge. They were satisfying a lust, and I think we do that for a bit in the film. But I hope there's a moment in the film where you do feel kind of sordid for having got to that point,
right?
And then we examine the lead character's, you know, a true mental state towards the end, and I would argue that he's kind of unhinged.
I agree, and for me the difference is the Death Wish movies. I mean, you had 5 of them, I think, in total, and Charles Bronson was a tough guy, and he turned into the Terminator, where your character, halfway through the movie, we see you thinking of your family, and you break down, and we're able to connect with that, where we couldn't connect with Charles Bronson. So I like that aspect of John Doe much better than the Death Wish movies.
That's true. I hope you do sense that the guy can't fill the hero's mask in John Doe. I mean, that's really what the film's about. Is the guy's had a mask created. He's made a literal mask, but then he's hiding behind all sorts of figurative masks because of the response that he's received back from the public, from the media. He's being interviewed by a very famous journalist in prison. He's a notorious figure, and he's kind of grown into that as his reality. But it's still a reality that isn't comfortable to him, that he isn't at peace, and it crumbles through the interview, I would argue, and it crumbles in the sort of climactic scene, and you see that, you know, there's an empty, small, very lost man at the heart of it. And no, Charles Bronson wasn't doing that as Batman isn't doing that. You know, Batman is the same.
Exactly.
It's a damaged guy who grows into something so much bigger and better and more righteous and more effective. Whereas, you know, John Doe does do that, but then it really poses a problem. Is in a real situation, this person, no matter how big and powerful and how effective and how right he can be, the person inside is a shriveled husk because of all these difficult choices they've had to make. They've lost the human being that they once were. And that's
right. Exactly. I agree with that. Now, for me personally, even though John's actions were violent and reprehensible, I mean, I was rooting for him because in real life there are a lot of bad people out there who've fallen through the cracks in the system, and they're only found after they've murdered people or assaulted and raped women. And we all watch this on the TV and we get angry, you know, that nothing was done about it. So when we see John taking care of these situations, we almost feel vindicated in a way that someone's actually doing something about it.
So yeah, totally. Though I mean, the film definitely taps into that feeling of injustice and anger and frustration. That's where the juice of the film lies. But it takes it to a point where you realize that, you know, whilst you're enjoying the response of this one man, if you condone it, then the logical conclusion is chaos. And you have to then sort of smell your own stink at that point and go, wait. You know, there are reasons why the courts work the way they do. There are reasons why we sometimes let the guilty off. It's so that we don't punish the innocent. And you have to, you know, and I think that's where the film has its power. It taps into those very guttural feelings of anger, of righteous indignation, and it makes you realize that those very raw feelings are not the feelings with which to be making any judgments, because you're not rational when you've got that red mist going. But I'm glad you feel that way, because that's certainly where Kel and Steve come from. And you know, you said I'm a parent, and I am. So it's very easy as a parent to tap into those emotions, because when you have a child and you're responsible for an innocent life, you have so much responsibility towards them. You have so much trust placed in you. When that trust is violated by someone else, then the feeling of powerlessness would cause anyone to lose any kind of rational response, I imagine. And it's very easy, you know, as an actor to tap into that. And that's really what my job was on this film, is to understand what that must have felt like, and then to understand what this man's very extreme response was fueled by. And that was a challenge, but it was one that, you know, we can all go there. The question is, should we be allowed to go there in society? We've
been talking with actor and producer Jamie Bamber. He's the star of the new independent feature film John Doe Vigilante, which comes out on DVD next Tuesday, April 14th. Jamie, thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely, James. My pleasure talking to you. I wish you well.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks.